Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, God, is it August 9th already? This month is going by at freaking warp speed. Hi, I'm Tristan. I stream twice a week. On Mondays, I do the Monday Discourse from 12 till 2 with Mia Mulder, who will be joining us in just a minute. And on Tuesday nights from 7 to 9, I do Step Back Tonight with just myself, where I hang out with y'all. If you want to, I go by he, him pronouns, and if you want to find my work, you can go to stepbackhistory.com. If you wish to help me pay bills and stuff with my work, I have Patreon, patreon.com/stepbackhistory, or if you are watching this on Twitch and you have Amazon Prime, you could give me one of your Twitch Prime subscriptions for the month. So, much appreciated. Yeah, so that's the main gist. What else? I have a video on the residential school system that people seem to be really enjoying, so if you haven't seen it, you should probably give it a watch. And my next video that I filmed on Friday, so I should be, I should have it for patrons out by tomorrow at the latest, and then for you guys sometime later this week. So look out for that. Already in progress. But it's on cryptocurrencies and commodity fetishism. It's a cute little video. It has a little point to it, and it kind of, is less dark and depressing than the other ones. It's still kind of dark and still kind of depressing, but less than my usual content, I guess I should say. Yeah. Anything else to mention is, if this is your first time watching this stream, please make yourself known. We have a great community, and I would love for everyone to get to know each other. So if it's your first time watching the stream, then join on in. Oh, yeah, if Matt Lipton is here in the chat, wanted to say, specifically to you, Matt, thank you so much for this book. So Matt Lipton sent me this book, White Skin, Black Fuel, about the far right and its connection with the fossil fuel industry. So I will read book. I have it here. I had got it on Saturday. So sent to the P.O. box. Okay. Now, without further ado, let's get Mia on the horn. Okay.
Hello. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, thank God you can hear me.
Do I sound like I'm from the olden times again, or no?
You sound great.
Good.
I'm just messing with my sound settings for the last week.
Oh no.
I'm glad that everything's working. Because normally, I've been having so many issues. My computer has shut down 8 different times due to random audio error, which is I didn't know could shut down your computer.
Random. You tried to have audio, and you are done. And I did not want that. Oh!
Don't you dare have audio. Hi.
How are things?
Things are good. I'm what's it called? It is the end of summer is coming to an end, and I'm very happy about that. But we're in this bad time in weather.
Bad summer.
Exactly. It's where one day it will be very warm and one day it will be very cold.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday it was very cold, and yesterday it was very it was very warm. So I'm dying.
Yes, today, bad summer is the late summer, otherwise known as bad summer, is also here in full swing. Yesterday I almost passed out because outside was sort of like a sauna, and I'm not finished, so I die instantly. But we decided that when outside looks like a sauna, the things you must do is go indoors to a farmer's market with no air conditioning to eat spicy food, but then go to a bar, a patio, so outside, and drink a lot of alcohol. And we all know that the combination of sweating a lot and heat and alcohol is good times.
It's very good times. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
And now it is 31 and sunny and humid. Yeah, it's fun.
You're having the like bad heat wave that I had like not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Like I'm free basically from this.
Yes.
Thank God.
Thank you for your golf stream. I hope you enjoy it. Because yeah, we are at the time of year where
I was about to say, hope you enjoy it now because it's going away.
Oh boy, no, this goes until like late September for us. We have this period where
no. I meant the Gulf Stream.
The Gulf Stream. Okay,
away.
Fair. Yeah, because we're like in a situation where like it. This is what summer in Ontario is like, where it stays at about 30, 31 degrees with like 70, 80, 90% humidity, and it just gets hotter and more humid, and then you have like a massive thunderstorm and it goes down to 20 and then it starts going back up again until you get another one. So yeah. And then occasionally that turns into tornadoes. So that's what the next month or two is going to look like.
Good vibes.
Good vibes. Yeah.
Just sounds good.
Yeah, people saw this land and said, "I intentionally wish to live here." Don't worry, we're like 6 months from it being -20 and snowing every day. So you choose which one you want. Those are the two weathers Canada has. We have 6 nice days a year, followed by just one of these two. Just awful country, terrible weather. Nobody should live here.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah. How have you been though? Like otherwise. Outside of the constant like weather chaos, have you read the recent the report that came out today, or part of the report?
I know that the IPCC put out a big report about climate change. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't read it yet. No, today has been slow. I save all of my I probably will talk about it on tomorrow's stream after I've taken a look at it. But I'm guessing it's not good, right?
No. Everything's so much worse than we thought it was going to be, basically.
Okay.
But otherwise we're good.
Yeah, other than everything being worse than we thought, we're great.
Yeah.
Besides that, we have other good news. Like on Friday, we're getting the season premiere of Lower Decks Season 2.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that actually. I really like Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm. And then on Monday we're getting the premiere of what I announced on Twitter is simultaneously the happiest news I've seen in a bit, but also the most actively damaging news to my mental health, which is that it could happen here. The podcast about the oncoming American Civil War is turning into a daily news podcast chronicling America's crumbling and balkanization. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is that every single day I get to hear Robert Evans talk about the news, which is basically all I want podcasts to be. Like, if all podcasts were just that and D&D playing, that would be basically my sweet spot.
Yeah.
The bad side is that it's his podcast about the oncoming apocalypse or the oncoming civil war in the United States. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. I haven't really looked into really what it's going to like. I don't fully get what this is going to be. Is it just going to be is it just him going to be us reading us the news?
My guess is that he's because he is
putting that into Civil War context, basically.
As a person who documents the far right and this kind of news, my guess is that it's going to be the closest to the Robert Evans journalism show. What if, my guess is that every day he's going to talk about some news stories and then he's going to link it to all the other things that he seems to know about. So my hope is that it's a daily thing of him, of Robert looking at things that are going on and talking about them in the context of why this is an issue for X, Y, and Z issue about like why America is like kind of drifting towards irreconcilable breakup, and it's like, okay, I hope we'll figure out what it is. But the idea of Robert Evans doing a daily podcast feels like it's intense because. And then someone did.
Yeah.
Someone put. I love the person who replied too, saying that like, oh, so your thought was while running 2 podcasts and just having a sequel to your novel being approved was to start a 3rd podcast.
She just like keep making more of this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how he how does he do that though? Like, how is that even physically possible?
I think he just like he lives in a shack in the woods and just internets and writes articles all day between bouts of drinking and shooting things.
The H bomber guy model.
Yeah.
But doing it on a daily basis instead of like a bi-yearly one, which seems lethal.
Yeah.
To him, I mean, like.
Yeah, the H bomber guy model of making 1 video every other year is solid. Cocaine, that's the answer. You know what?
It would explain a lot. It wouldn't be good, but it would explain a lot.
The other thing too is that he's got a big enough of a deal that he might have like research assistants and stuff.
That's true. I keep underestimating the value of having like people actually do part of the work for you.
Yeah,
I feel like that's impossible for me to relate to because I don't think I could ever like trust anyone else to do a YouTube video with me. But I feel like, yeah, if you have people to sort of like help you write and help you research, then yeah, I could see it working. It would still be a hell of a lot of work though.
Yeah. Guy's a machine, I think.
Unreal.
Yeah. We are, but I'm excited to have Robert Evans talk about the news regularly because he has good brain. He has good brain, and his brain takes are solid. He has
very good brain.
Yeah. I just recently finished his novel. It was a lot.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
There was a lot of drugs, a lot of cyberpunk.
Both good things.
Mm-hmm. I did like the idea of posthumans in the future just drinking beer that's like laced with LSD.
Sorry, what did you say? A post?
Like posthumans, like transhuman, like people who drink beer laced with LSD.
That sounds horrifying. To be honest, like. Well, I mean, do like cyber implants or whatever help you manage the LSD, or is it, or do you just go full trip every time you drink a beer?
I think that because they even mentioned that they have to thin it out for like normal people, like that they drink drinks that would be like, you know, alcohol, like lethally alcoholic to a regular human, for example.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like. You know, cracking open a cold one with the boys takes on a very different meaning if all of the boys start having psychedelic experiences.
Yeah. The other thing too is that they have cavalry that is people riding on the backs of large versions of like the Boston Dynamics dogs.
Oh my god! Of course,
which is just the most perfect thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's good writing, but it's also just like, damn.
Yeah.
We're gonna end up with that, like in real life, like not too far away.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, as someone also pointed out, that the next step obviously has to be Robert Evans has to have a tabletop role playing game podcast, which then he will be like Disney is to cinema. Robert Evans will be to my podcasting diet. He will just be all of it.
Yes, very true. But do you have? He will become the McElroy brothers, but political if he does that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, Leechfest is going to have him as the host, and then just, you guys get edged out, and it's like all podcasts will eventually just be Robert.
Robert Evans does every single thing.
Yeah.
I am down with that, though. I like that.
All podcasts. Every single one. Even that one that I saw that was like about TikTok.
A TikTok podcast.
Yeah. It's called Talk Show, and it stars two TikTok stars, I guess.
What are you talking about? Like, just
I don't know. I haven't
trailers?
listened to it. I just see commercials for it. But Talk Show, a TikTok podcast starring Robert Evans, who has.
This reminds me actually, because I was about to make a joke about like, what if Robert Evans was on TikTok? But did you know what's it called? Is it called Robert Reich?
Robert Reich, like the former labor secretary for Bill Clinton, who was like a big Bernie guy.
Yeah, he makes TikToks.
Oh my goodness.
He does TikTok dances, but he makes them political. I needed to know this because I've been wanting to tell you for the last 2 months, but I keep forgetting. And it just reminded me that like he just has a TikTok and he posts regularly, and they're good TikToks to relate with the youths.
Nice.
It's about like a labor law and like economic reform measures, and I love it.
Oh yeah, someone just pointed out. First of all, that is beautiful. I'm gonna have to look that up. While you were saying that, someone pointed out the Joe Rogan Experience, hosted by Robert Evans, which would be.
Oh. No.
Just no, Joe Rogan doesn't exist anymore, and he's just hosted by Robert Evans, who interviews people for 4 hours. And I want a 4-hour interview with Elon Musk done by Robert Evans. I don't know if anybody else does, but
I'd love that. That would be incredible. It's never gonna happen, but I'd love to see it.
yeah, we all would love to see it. That's like, this is my fan fiction. This is my what's it called? Real person fan fiction. Just a fictional interview between Robert Evans and Elon Musk.
Yeah, my headcanon.
Louder with Crowder with
podcasting.
Robert Evans. No, because then Robert has to die of no lungs and heart. So
Then but we're also going to eventually end up with my brother, and Robert Evans.
my brother, and Robert. God damn, that'd be a weird energy.
I know.
Robert
It would be
Evans, you have the
so
strict rule
incompatible.
of no bummers. He's just like silent the whole podcast.
Damn.
Then he has to popularize. What was that? He had a cocktail that he wanted to make. That was like a cocktail that it was on the worst year ever, where he was like, it was like a cocktail made of like engine degreaser or something like that. It was called the 2020 cocktail. I just looked it for my Google search, and I just found out that I had already looked this up before. 2020 highball with 409. 409 and lemon juice.
That sound. I don't. What is 409?
409 is. Try to find it.
Just accidentally Googled for Robert Reich 409.
Formula
Which is nothing.
Formula 409 all-purpose cleaner.
Yeah, that sounds like a 2020 drink.
Yeah. Well, there's your Robert Evans. Oh my god.
Oh no! Then we would end up with Kill Robert Evans. That's bad. We don't want that.
Well, there's your like, what's it called? Robert Evans being on WTYP would be pretty badass. He'd be a good
I could
guest.
see that. That could work. Yeah, he would be a great guest.
You made me think Steven Crowder had died for a minute. No, he's like Jair Bolsonaro. He keeps almost dying and getting us all of our hopes up, and then not dying. Because he keeps like, I don't know. I think he's got some sort of weird connective tissue disorder or something. So he's constantly going into surgery.
Yeah. I'm like, he has to be propped up by like string and wire at this point, right? Because like, despite having multiple health issues, he still goes out like smoking, drinking heavily, eating just like an obscene amount of red meat.
Yeah, he has to do like tons of performative masculinity for his media persona. Meanwhile, he has like a degenerative like connective tissue disorder that probably is being exacerbated by this.
Yeah. God. That kind of reminds me of how, because like, he's definitely vaccinated, right? and like he's definitely like behind the scenes. He's doing all of the things that he needs to do for himself to be, um, I don't know, healthy.
He's just like vegan
Uh,
when not eating steak for videos.
yeah, like that's sort of what I'm imagining, right? Because I just saw a thread on Twitter the other day about how like the people who are really high up the entire sort of like right-wing propaganda machine, the Chuddyverse, basically. Um, they're all like vaccinated, and they're all like they all believe in like actual science and good ideas, but they can't say those ideas because then they're gonna lose the entire fan base because their entire thing is about like propagating falsehoods and lying. Um, but then there are the sort of the middlemen, like because there has been like a flurry of sort of like local TV anchors and like local radio hosts and whatever who didn't get vaccinated because they believed everyone on the high up, like higher up in the rankings, so to say. Um, and it just reminds me of that how it's almost a bit unfair how he's getting a lot of good medical health care, which he should be getting, but it sucks that like a lot of people don't have that.
And someone just said, Crowder, Crowder. It's Crowder. Say it right. Anyways, yeah. It reminds me about how through the grapevine you hear that like there are some prominent like right-wing media figures who their entire livelihood has basically become reliant on shilling like right-wing political talking points. And they also know that because they've basically spouted hate for years and years, that they have virtually no career prospects if they aren't just constantly doing this, and that they don't even believe the things they say anymore, but they just have to do it because it's their way to like survive. And it's like, what kind of
Yeah.
hell they put themselves in.
And it sucks too, right? Because like you can like fairly reliably make a career sort of out of like leaving the left or whatever, right? Like there are a lot of people who've been like left wing figures who have gone on to like either do mainstream media or to sort of like leave politics a bit altogether, sort of verge more into like entertainment media. Um, but as you say, because the people on the far right like spew hatred instead of like just sound political ideas and sound thoughts, um, they can't because like and they know this because a lot of people have tried, right? Like back in 2012 and 13 and whatever, like there were people who stopped doing right-wing politics and they're yeah, they don't have anything anymore.
Yes,
Like,
we all are aware of the golden one, yes.
but I'm also thinking of people who are like even people who did fairly well, just even if they fuck up one thing, that can ruin their entire thing. Just like Milo Yiannopoulos, for example, like he did fairly well, um, and until he sort of like got cancelled by his own basically, and tried to rebrand and has tried to rebrand so many times and is never back.
Yeah, it was very profitable to be a right wing, hyper right wing content creator from about 2014 until basically Charlottesville. And yeah, there's a lot of people, and then it like completely like started deflating. And only a few people who can make money from like the Koch brother foundation or whatever are the ones who are still around. So a lot of them, like, yeah, like either like completely ruined any chance they have of having a career because all they have to do is Google their name and find out that they've been like spewing anti-Semitism and racism for a good chunk of their life, or yeah, they try to pivot, and I can't. It can be pretty tough to pivot. Like, I can't think of anyone who's done it successfully.
Yeah, I mean, there have people who've done it and like, survived, but almost none have been able to sort of retain the same sort of status as before, unfortunately.
Yeah, because there was a YouTuber who, during the time when it was cool to be a Nazi, he he made videos that were a near constant diatribe about basically like pure hatred against Muslims. And then I think his channel got banned, or he decided he didn't want to be a fascist anymore and started making history videos. And now everyone's like, oh, you should really watch this guy's videos. They're really good history videos. And like, why aren't you watching this guy? And I'm like, this is the guy who like was talking about like how Nazi or how like what's it called? How Muslims are a plague on Europe like 4 years ago, and I can remember things. That's why I'm not watching them.
Yeah.
That's Kraut and Tea, by the way. I don't really give a shit about like protecting the names of the guilty in that case. Okay. So,
Anyway,
so sometimes people ask questions. We have a fair and nice number of them. So
surprisingly political start to this. Usually we talk about like Victoria 3 for half an hour, but we actually talked about politics.
Yeah, we haven't gotten like a really good like Victoria 3's been given some dev diary stuff, but I haven't been reading them because I assume it's going to change, and I'll just get it all together by the time they actually start a show, or they actually start this game. The game's probably not going to come out until sometime next year at the earliest.
Yeah,
so
probably, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I am obsessed though.
I'm trying very hard to not bathe myself in it because I know that I will go insane with hype. So I'm trying to like not think of it until like the release date is on the horizon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's probably the smart way to do it. I am unfortunately not very smart, so I've been reading every single word for every single thing. Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't announce Gettysburg Armored Warfare 2 instead of Victoria 3. Yes.
It's what the people want.
Can we play the Métis Confederacy in Victoria 3? I don't know. I imagine that the Métis will be a group and that there will be ethnic separatist groups, so I don't see why you couldn't do that. As long as the Métis are like a modeled ethnic group within the way that they're doing things, yeah. Which is like, that's the thing, is that Victoria 3 is going to end up with some really random politics, I hope. Where we're going to have like, I want like Cornish separatists going to war and stuff like that.
And the thing is, like, mods, like, there are already a bunch of mods for Victoria 2 that do that shit. And so even if the base game doesn't do that, Victoria 3 is apparently going to be a lot more moddable. So, worst case, if the base game, if Paradox doesn't give us Cornish independence, modders will do it for us in a game that doesn't crash on you every day, like Victoria 2 does.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see what happens with Canada, because if I learn anything, Paradox doesn't particularly care about Canada. Like they don't really model Canada at all. They just assume it's like one country that's 100% full of English people.
Yeah, basically. I know that Quebec exists.
Yes.
And I know that they have some sort of thing for like the Maritimes, but I don't know what the fuck that is. And that's it. Those three is what Canada is.
Yeah, no indigenous people. If I remember, Victoria 2 was the game where it was like still like, this is just empty map. Nobody's here. Come take it. It's free.
Basically, yeah. The third one isn't gonna do that though. Like all of the places are gonna have people living in it.
Yeah.
I'm looking very much forward to like unrecognized countries instead of just empty land.
Mm-hmm. Cornish Canada. Listen, we can all dream.
It can happen.
Can a Cornish separatist movement arise in England, take over England, conquer Canada, and then implement a regime of Cornish supremacy in Canada?
I hope so. From what I've read from the dev diaries, I don't think that's impossible. Actually, I think it's extraordinarily implausible.
This is like a DDR Jake level task. Listen, I saw like DDR Jake conquer the world in Hearts of Iron 4 as Nepal. So
yeah, like yeah. Anyway, questions.
Yeah, questions.
Sorry, I derailed this with Victoria.
It's all good. What's it called? People. This is what the people want. They love when we talk about Victoria 3. They hate when we talk about Star Trek. That's the trick.
That's the trick.
And then they really hate when we talk about D&D. That's the tier list.
Yeah.
S tier, Hearts of Iron 3, or no, sorry, Victoria 3. A tier, history. B tier, politics, and then F tier or C tier is Star Trek, and then F tier is Dungeons and Dragons. That's how the list works.
That's the score.
Yeah. Okay. If things in South Africa. Okay, this is from Matt Lipton, who recently sent me a book to my PO box.
Oh shit.
Yeah. If things in South Africa go real pear-shaped and Afrikaner separatists go around killing non-whites, what's the over-under on this being like Rhodesia, where white supremacists would fly over and back them up? I mean,
A lot of ifs there.
yeah, there's a lot of like context that we would need to know, but if such a thing happened, like honestly, like you can look to a lot of different examples. Like, I mean, older ones. There are older ones, but I think the best one to look at is like ISIS. Like ISIS was definitely recruiting troubled people from across the world to go and fight for them. So yeah, I do think that if there was like a kind of like vanilla ISIS that showed up in South Africa, then yeah, that like white supremacists from around the world would probably like self-radicalize and go out there.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Vanilla ISIS. Jesus.
I did it. Okay. Next is a question from 123 Purple. And this is a question: what does removing colonial statues mean to you in a Canadian context? I'm not exactly sure what it means. I mean, what it means to me specifically, it's good. Canada is a country where every single square kilometer was stolen from people who are either dead or their numbers greatly diminished, and then forced into reserves where they are basically getting horribly mistreated by the government that stole their land from them. And then glorifying the people who put that system into place is an even more grotesque way of rubbing it into people's faces. Now, there's going to be a long and painful process of trying to undo all of that damage and get us to a place where, you know, the people whose land was stolen is returned to them. But we can at least start by not venerating the people who caused this situation in the first place. Such is the way to think when you live in a settler colonial state.
Yeah. I don't have any input here. I don't. As far as I know, we don't have too many statues here over like the Swedish Empire. We do have a few, but most of them have already gotten removed, and there hasn't really been a lot of controversy here.
Yeah.
Oh. So I don't have as much of a perspective.
But that's the main way I feel. A lot of people don't feel that way, and they are incorrect.
And they are wrong.
Yes. Okay. By the way, everyone's talking about like airplanes to fly out to South Africa. I just watched a video yesterday about this new airplane that might, like, in a couple decades be like the main airplane we use. That's like uses like way less fuel and might be light enough that it can be fueled with hydrogen and like fuel cells and stuff. And it's this plane and it's also this thing that like the biggest model could have as many as 400 passengers on it, and it would have like 6 rows and stuff like that. But it has some weird side effects, which is that like most of the plane would have no window seats. And it like looks kind of like a giant stealth bomber.
Oh, one of those. Oh, I know one of those. Oh yeah, I think I've seen part of that.
Because
I'm not super sure how that's gonna turn out.
I mean, if it works out, I would love to do that kind of thing.
I'd love to travel in a stealth bomber.
In
a white stealth bomber, it's what it would end up being.
Yeah, I would love to see a plane that could run on hydrogen. That would be great. I would love for the single most environmentally destructive way to travel turning into a non-environmentally destructive way to travel, so that we could still have international travel, but also, you know, if it's going to run on hydrogen, make it a Zeppelin. Okay, well, Mia, you happen to be on a podcast where you talked about a Zeppelin that tried to use hydrogen instead of helium for its balloon fuel, and it turned out a certain way.
Yeah, it turned out perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. If you, yeah, the Hindenburg did not go super well, but I feel like hydrogen in balloon form is a bit more unsafe than like hydrogen in like fuel cell form. But I'm not sure. I would have to ask an engineer.
This is something that's sitting
For
around.
more information about that, you should check out the Well, There's a Problem episode about the Hindenburg.
Yeah, if
which
you
is
have
3 hours long.
Yes, if you have an afternoon.
It's 3 hours long, and it involves me and Alice making a bunch of making fun of the Germans.
One-sein Gumi. Yeah, so that the thing about the airplanes is like, man, if that could be the thing, I don't know. The future's gonna, like, if we can figure out air travel, that's like gonna be like, because like air travel, I felt like was gonna be like one of the last things we were gonna figure out how to do in like a way that doesn't do carbon dioxide. And man, if they figure that one out, I feel like maybe we'll be able to figure out this system. Maybe. I don't know. I have to read the IPCC report about how we're all gonna die apparently tonight. So,
yeah, like there's a part of me that's like, I love hearing news about like more efficient like planes and like electric cars, and because that's becoming the norm now, thankfully. And what else? The like more efficient cargo ships for international shipping. And there's a part of me that's just like, all of this sounds really great. I wish we had it in like the 80s.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is coming like precisely 15 years too late.
Yeah, because I'm like, I'm just reading about like forest fires in like Greece and the Congo and the Amazon, like in China. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna spoil too much from the thing, but the ICC
spoilers for the IPCC report.
A spoiler for the report. They do say that that no matter how we're gonna solve this, we're gonna have to contend with fire weather, which is not a type of weather I learned about in kindergarten.
Yeah, I did not. First time in my life that I have seen the weather report be like you know how it's like foggy, mostly sunny, or something like that. It's the first time in my life living here in like Ontario where the thing was smoke, and it's like, oh, I don't like that. So yeah,
that's concerning.
Okay.
Although speaking of that, I did see not too long ago. I saw a thing about like some Silicon Valley, and not Silicon Valley, but like some sort of tech thing, like designing a new cargo ship that would run on wind power, like by sails, instead of by like huge diesel engines, because that's what most cargo ships run on. Mm-hmm. And just enjoying how Twitter just dunked on that for a long time. Like, holy shit, you invented ships that run on the wind? Holy fuck.
I'm like,
no one's ever thought of this.
I know, but in some ways I'm like people rip on it, but also because there's ways to look at it. Because there is the ways to look at it that's like kind of like looking at your last video, where it's like, oh, this is Silicon Valley reinventing sailing, but then also this is actually like essential. Like this is actually like looking back. Like if we need to figure out how we're going to have energy, without relying on hydrocarbons, we kind of have to look back to the technologies that we were using before we were reliant on hydrocarbons. And so we have to kind of look at sail, and the one today was water wheels and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I am definitely looking forward to technology historians a few hundred years from now being like, the age of sail the age of the motor, and then the second age of sail.
Yeah, the age of techno sale. People envision cyberpunk futures to be like very gritty and super high tech, but I do think that the real cyberpunk future that we're gonna have to get into is just like high tech, like like high tech, low tech. Like imagine the 1700s but high tech.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're gonna end up with having, or like the 1800, like early 1800s, right? Like trams everywhere because that's more efficient than a car. Sailing ships are still like used, with the rare exception.
See, we're gonna replace cars with electric Boston Dynamics dogs, and we're just gonna Silicon Valley is gonna invent the horse.
Yeah.
I would love to ride in a green carriage being pulled by 2 or 3 Boston Dynamics dogs.
That's what I'm saying.
I would. Okay, man, this feels like some sort of like very specific type of like steampunk, where it's like Victorian technology, but it's all like Victorian technology that has been reinvented by like modern technology because of like the need to get off of oil in a very short fashion. And I'm like, man, there is a very cool like steampunk setting where people ride on the back of Boston Dynamics dogs and ride around in either zeppelins or they take sailing ships across the sea. Or the other thing too that's kind of cool is, and I just saw an article about this morning, so I'm going to read more. But for a Mars mission, they developed this sort of like tin diode material that converts heat into electricity. And it was very expensive, but they were thinking that, apparently there's been a breakthrough to make that a lot cheaper. And it's like, oh, so you could do stuff like, put this stuff by your CPU, and all of the electricity that gets like, all the extra heat just gets reconverted into electricity.
Yeah.
Or like putting it by
just reduce waste heat.
Yeah, but we create so much waste heat.
Yeah.
You could just put it in the sidewalks, and the urban heat island effect would be like, would be able to create electricity.
Yeah. That's good shit.
Yeah.
What weirdly optimistic we're being right now too, because I also saw like recently that the like solar power, the price of oil is basically approaching a point now where it's going to be more expensive to use. It's just going to be more expensive to use oil than use any other type of renewable, which under capitalism is what matters apparently.
Yeah,
but
and I mean
it is unfortunately what matters. So if that works, hell yeah.
Capitalism is weirdly good at hyper optimizing to the cheapest option, and so if the cheapest option is renewables, it'll actually be kind of surprising how fast everything will just not stop being on that. And so I have one friend who I don't see eye to eye with him on a lot of politics stuff, but he is also like his heart is in the right place, and he definitely like looks at the world in a lot of similar ways that I do. But the thing that he does is that he is a very close follower of things like oilprice.com, which is sort of like the oil speculators periodical about like, so he like looks at like what oil people are saying about oil and how they're talking about like, yeah, this isn't the long-term investment anymore. And he hates how Elon Musk posts, but he sees things like Tesla Motors as like this like essential like roadblock that we have to overcome to kind of get over this one like bottleneck of technology. And that if we can do that, then that's that. Like, I don't know how much I feel about these kinds of things, but I did not know that apparently Tesla Motors is really generous when it comes to the patents on their things. Like, they just release a lot of patents for Tesla cars for people to copy, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, I think the company itself does obviously a lot of weird shit, but when it comes to sort of like the technology aspect, they could be doing a lot worse. And I think the idea that they're doing is, I think that the idea behind why they're doing this is because if if they were more restrictive with patents and intellectual property, it would make it harder for the entire world to go electric. And Tesla can only make money if people use electric cars, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that they're just gonna like make electric become the norm, and then they're gonna become dominant within that market, rather than try to like establish Tesla in addition to like the current automobile market. So the idea is that by doing this, this will help in the long term with profitability.
Yeah. So this friend of mine
But
really
I
likes
disagree with
Tesla, and he sees it as like this necessary thing to get through this bottleneck of this technological bottleneck that we have to get through to like mainstream things like electric cars and battery technology and that kind of stuff. Which, like, okay, it's a very different way of looking at the world. That's why I'm always like very curious about his thoughts on things. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Okay, so the next question.
The optimism for 20 minutes we just had.
Yeah, there you go, everybody.
Wonderful.
Last week we talked about our transhumanist future, or what's it called, transfuturism, and today we've had a whole thing about some stuff that's surprisingly close and a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one too, and that's going on in like what's it called, new developing renewables topics, is that apparently there are some very key breakthroughs happening right now in the ability to produce electricity efficient hydrogen, which would result in hydrogen fuel cells being mainstreamed, which is a huge deal because the thing about hydrogen fuel cell cars is that they can, like, you can refill them like you refill a car at a gas station, and apparently you can also retrofit gasoline cars to turn into hydrogen fuel cell cars.
That seems wild, if that's true. It's huge if it turns out to be true.
You basically have to take out the engine, but like you can keep the gas tank and stuff like that. Like you have to put like a layer of coat on the gas tank, but you can put a hydrogen fuel cell. It's small enough that it can fit in the trunk of the kind of like motor area of a car and still work.
That sounds interesting.
So.
Huh. Yeah.
But hydrogen fuel cells are a thing that people are trying to get to work, and if it's not like a fuel cell source in itself, as a way to have things that like you can basically solving a lot of transportation issues with having a fuel that is dense enough and liquid that you can run an engine and then just refuel using the same kind of like infrastructure that say like a what's it called? Like using the same kind of infrastructure that the gas system has to do, and that's like why it's like a big deal. So that's that. Okay.
A lot of good points.
Yeah. Question we got here. I don't know who Josh Duggar is. Duggar. I think maybe the name sticks. I don't know. Do you know who Josh Duggar is?
I don't.
Let's find out who this is.
I heard the name. Oh no. Joshua James Duggar is an American former reality television personality, political activist, and accused sex offender.
Fun. Okay. Bearing the lead on that one.
He is best known for his appearance on the reality television series 19 Kids and Counting.
Okay.
He was recently arrested on child pornography charges.
Okay, fun. This is going to be a real happy question then. So, Josh Duggar, are you yourself a victim if you become a sexual predator after being raised in such a fucked up... And this is a backdoor way of 255 AD trying to get me to agree with cultural genocide again. Because are you yourself a victim and become a sexual predator because you were raised in like a hyper-religious household? Like you give a young boy no sex ed, you tell him all women are evil, you refuse to let him have access to any girls aside from his own little sisters. Doesn't that sound like a deliberate attempt to create a child molester?
You know, I think this is a common thing that people need to also... I think it's a common thing that people often misunderstand, that people can and often are both victim and perpetrator.
In fact, many are. Like you look at the story of
Yes.
basically like any like sex offender or like even like a lot of serial killers, they are victims of like horrific abuse. It doesn't erase the things they did though.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot of people who are very sheltered, who are who are in those exact same contexts, who then don't become that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the a person's like victim status doesn't sort of undo the bad things that they have done themselves.
So yeah, in some ways you can be like, what can we systemically change to try and fix, like, have fewer of these kinds of people pop up? But in the end of the day, like, you chose to like sexually abuse like family members, like, fuck you. like no.
Yeah.
Okay. So next we got the this is from the non-Dutch Dutch name, Orange Man. Okay. How do we know what elements, such as, okay, I don't know how people thought we became media analysts, but let's do this. How do you know what elements, such as the plot, art style, realistic of a specific piece of media, are we supposed to care about and not care about? When I play a certain game or watch a certain movie, I usually have a lot of thoughts about stuff in them and then realize that no one online cares about most of them.
Yeah, I don't know.
So first of all, I would say that I would say that there is something pretty legit about just, like, your interpretation is your interpretation. That's good. In many ways, so I've always looked at this thing. There's two ways to look at it. So I always think of like mastery of a particular art form. I've said this a few times it's figuring out all of the places within your work that's a decision and then learning how to make all of those decisions intentionally. And the reverse is also true, and like looking at various things and thinking about what was an intentional decision and which or it wasn't. And the higher quality the piece of art, the more like intentional decisions were made in all of the places where there could be. And so like, yeah, heavy, and like you could, like, I don't know, like I think that you could take away whatever you want. Just the things that come up are usually what people who are paid to write about it notice. But it's not like you're part of the, like, you are not contributing to the conversation just because the things you noticed are not the things that the internet cared about. Unless this is sort of like a backdoor way of talking about the way that I think about whenever I watch something or like watch a show and I'm like, that was really good. Now it's time to go on the internet to find out why I was wrong. Because I've had that situation once or twice. So I think I talk absolute nonsense.
I don't know media analysis.
This is true.
That's what my answer going to be. I do not know.
I took one feminist literary theory class and I got a B- in it. So take from that what you will. Okay, let's see. Next we got, okay. Is Jimmy Dore a grifter or just really incompetent?
Why not both?
Yeah, why not both? He is most definitely a grifter, especially because like the other day he was like giving shit to people for like being progressives while living in a nice house and stuff like that. Like, while like it's like well known that Jimmy Dore lives in a multi-million-dollar house in like a really expensive neighborhood. It's like, oh yeah, he's shitty, man. Just don't Jimmy Dore.
I just love the bluntness of that. Just nah, he's shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah. Grifter and incompetent.
Because yeah, his whole thing is just kind of he wants to make money off of like starting fights, and he knows that he gets attention when Jimmy don't exactly. He knows that he gets attention when he has the Peter Coffin like approach to social media, which is, you know that people are going to believe in you and pay attention to you as long as you are constantly in the spotlight of some sort of controversy, and that brings in, that brings followers, that brings attention, and then there is like, a subset of people who are just contrarians one way or the other and will take your side, and you can like build off of that. And Jimmy Dore is very much of that. He's a very good at that specific thing.
I am. I'm constantly like in awe over the fact that I keep forgetting that a lot of people are. That a lot of people are just full on contrarians. So like whenever Jimmy Dore can say literally whatever, and as you say, like as long as he stays within controversy, there will be people who like take pride in sort of being in a very like minority within a minority within a minority. So like I don't know, most people within like progressive people in general, let's say, is one group, and then we have like people who like I don't know AOC or whatever. That's like a minority of that larger group. And then we have people who are like vocal about that. That's a minority of another group. And then we have people who want to be part of like the progressive group, but just they don't want to be part of the they don't want to be part of the group that like likes actual progressive politicians. They just want to be progressives, like in theory. So when Jimmy Dore comes along and just is an asshole about everything, then it's just oh fuck yeah.
Yeah, there is
I can imagine a theoretical progressive that is better than anything we have right now, and because I can do that, I'm better than everyone else.
Yeah, there is like a large, and this comes in a lot of like liberal politics too, but like there is a sort of like idea that a lot of people who came to leftist politics in a very like right-wing liberal society can get this feeling like they're smarter and better than everybody because like they figured it out and no one else did. But now that like left-wing politics is becoming more mainstream, they're just like, oh, we just need to like, oh, we need to get, like, now I need to find some way to call myself better than these people because my identity is focused around me thinking that I'm better than other people, which is basically all of like, you know, kind of the semi like, you know, like breast cancer painted Raytheon missile like liberal thinking too.
Yeah.
It's a very liberal way to do it. It's very like anti-collectivist. It's like I thought that socialism was like the way that I made myself look cool, and now that it's turning into an actual movement where you have to work with other people and you have to do the dirty work of not just theorizing but actually like, you know, working with people who have slightly different opinions to get things done. Then all of a sudden now you're like, oh no, I have to double down on being a purist or else you know, I might end up joining a group, which that can't happen.
Yeah, I can't ever. I feel uncomfortable whenever we don't talk about me.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Which I do.
That is the Peter Coffin line. I get very upset when people are not talking about me specifically.
All right. Let's not get into drama posting.
Okay, no drama.
We could, and let me just say, like after the stream is over, we probably will. But like, let's.
Yeah, I'm just mad about the Sophie thing from the weekend.
I know, me too.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's do a Star Trek question. Let's do this.
I just like that both of us just like,
I hate. Yeah, you know that if you're a leftist who finds yourself coming to the defense of Andy No, that you have lost the fucking narrative. Okay.
It's a good summary. That's a good. Yeah.
All right. Is it okay? Let's talk about the Federation and how it's secretly Western imperialism. Is it imperialist for the Federation to require other societies to adopt some of their democratic socialist principles before they're allowed to join? If the answer is yes, then does that necessarily mean it's not justifiable? The Women at Warp podcast had two indigenous people, a native Australian and a native Canadian, on to talk about imperialism in Star Trek. And they made the argument that it's imperialistic for the Federation to demand other societies adopt their issues before they can have access to advantages that come with being a member. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with defining imperialism that broadly. Regardless, I don't think it's unreasonable to refuse to give aid to societies you consider oppressive. Ooh, okay, so this is a big one. I think that so the big one that comes to mind in this situation is always the Bajoran issue in Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah. Where they sort of like touch on this issue a little bit.
Yes, because Bajor is a religious society that still has like a kind of ecclesiastical hierarchy and like is not an exactly equal society. But the Federation's there to help because, well, it basically turns out it's very thin. They're like, they're like, we're just here to help you recover after the Cardassian occupation. But then all of the conversations behind the scenes when the Bajorans aren't there, it's like, all right, yeah, we need to get these people into the Federation. And at the end of the day, they choose not to because that's kind of bullshit. Yeah. So, there is definitely like sort of like especially like there is like a little bit of like American chauvinism in the idea of the Federation.
Yeah. Like, we know best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But now that I think about those kinds of standards and like how it got people into the Federation, now I want to like. Now, if I get an opportunity to write a Star Trek episode, I know exactly what I'm going to do, because the Federation now reminds me more of the European Union than it does the U.S.
Yeah.
And one of the very interesting things about the European Union that I think is an interesting political thing, and I think would make an interesting Star Trek episode, is about how the European Union is dealing with the fact with how do you require a country to be a democracy in order to join the European Union, but what happens when a democracy in the European Union then becomes a non-democracy because of like how the EU is kind of really tap dancing to figure out what to do about Poland and Hungary. And it would be kind of cool to see a Star Trek talk about that issue.
Yeah. I'd love to see that. I could definitely see something about that.
Like the Andorians and Vulcans start getting angry at each other, and they start like becoming more dictatorshipy, and they're like, "What do we do about like the Andorians becoming a militaristic dictatorship?" And it's like,
yeah. They could probably do a lot with that actually, because they have a lot of sort of like build up to. They have the far future right now with Discovery, where the Federation basically doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, they haven't really gone into super much detail about how that collapse happened.
It was the burn. The burn caused it.
Yeah, but you can fit a lot in there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could definitely sort of like do something with that. They're still doing shows in that time space, right?
Yeah. Yeah, season 3 ended with them still in the far future, so... And that's just going to be their playhouse, because kind of the timeline that they left is going to be what, what's it called? Strange New Worlds is going to be on.
Mm-hmm. So, and then they're all still in the same, like, prime timeline, right?
Yeah.
They haven't made new ones, as far as I know.
No, now that Paramount Plus has sort of incorporated both of them, I have a feeling that the Kelvin timeline is just going to quietly disappear.
It's quietly die.
Because they can't get... A lot of the actors aren't coming back for those movies. Their Chekhov is literally dead.
Yeah.
Some of them, like Chris Pine, I think, are too expensive at this point to have in the kind of ensemble. Chris Pine and Zoe Saldana are a bit too expensive at this point, I would think.
Yeah.
Now she's what's it called? Zoe Saldana is a Marvel one. Is a Marvel now. I imagine she's very expensive now.
Oh yeah, she's in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Fuck.
Yeah, she's just in green face.
Yeah. This isn't really a conversation that I'm meant to be having, but I do find it sort of like weird and like this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I just think it's a bit weird how a lot of like black actors and actresses end up in like non-human skin tones in a lot of movies.
Yeah. Like
that's weird.
How like all of the Maori in the Lord of the Rings were just Uruk-hai.
Yeah. That's weird.
Yep.
I'm not the person who should be deconstructing that, because I don't have enough to do that. But that's weird. Speaking of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
okay, yeah.
more questions.
Yeah, let's see. So yeah, hashtag cancel the Federation is our answer. We just cancel cultured the Federation. Pack it in, everybody.
I'd love to see that. Like, I'd love generally to see more shows just explore the Federation being a bit more dickish. Like, I'd love to see an alternative to the Federation that's like better than the Federation.
Yeah,
'Cause
or
I don't
just
think
like
we've seen that.
I would just love to see more that talks about the Federation and like how running the Federation, like multicultural societies require work in order to function. Like you can't just say you're multicultural, do nothing about it, and then everything will be fine. Like in being a multicultural society, a society that like incorporates people from different places and different backgrounds and different points of view, is an active project. And
Yeah.
there's so much you could talk about that with the Federation. Let's just I want Star Trek Babylon 5, where it's just like the Federation, like council space station, where they have to deal with shit. There you go.
I'd love to see that actually.
Yeah. It does seem like right now they're a little bit too preoccupied with TOS aliens, because like even Discovery is like, hey, Vulcans and Andorians and Orions, you guys like those? And it's like, yes, I guess all the nostalgia in this room is for the '60s show, but I want Cardassians. I want to see them. I really want to see what they do with Cardassians and Ferengi with like modern day prosthetics.
Oh shit, we haven't seen any of those actually in Discovery, have we?
No, the only
Have
like
we seen a single Ferengi?
no, we haven't. But I would really love to see what like they could do with the Ferengi with like modern day prosthetics. I'd like to see that kind of thing.
Cause oh my god, I need to see a Ferengi actually. I need to see a Ferengi in the far future.
Yeah.
I don't know. I require it. I need more Ferengi content because Ferengi content is the best fucking content in Star Trek.
I would love to see, like, you know how you were talking about, like, what's a better alternative for the Federation? I would love in the far future, the new Federation with its, like, neoliberal vision gets overruled by, like, radical communist Ferengi because of, like, Rom's influence as Grand Nagus.
The reforms, yeah.
And so, like, they, like, discovered Marx and they just became, like, the most hardcore leftists of the galaxy. And they're, like, I don't know, maybe they're like trots, and so they like are trying to like create the permanent revolution to conquer the decadent capitalist Federation, and
I love this.
And just Soviet realist Ferengis and stuff like that, and like the propaganda.
So the United Socialist Republic of Ferengi, Ferengar,
the FSSR.
I'm just saying, Star Trek writers, Paramount, whatever, you should hire us.
Yeah, we're pretty good at this.
This is the good shit. Like Star Trek is politics, and we have the politics, and we have the perfect synthesis of like history and politics, and Star Trek nerddom that you need to make good stuff here.
Star Trek is history and politics and
stupid sci-fi
and stupid. You want an episode where you talk about respecting people of different religious backgrounds that ends with finding out that God is a koala bear. That is the best that television has to offer.
Someone just said we should start a Star Trek knockoff collaborative fiction project. They used to have those on YouTube, and they were popular for a little bit, but then they all got sued into oblivion, and now they don't exist anymore. But if either one of us, at least if I do it, make enough money from doing YouTube or whatever, that we can like start our own production companies. We're meeting up, Tristan, and
yes.
we're making I don't know, Fargate or whatever it's gonna be called. Just making new Star Trek.
The most gay communist Star Trek you've ever seen.
The most luxury automated gay space communism you've ever seen.
And we'll have in our fictional history stuff like that what's it called? A rogue missile from Scotland shot down the International Space Station in 2022, and it's a Twitter callback joke.
I don't know what it is.
It was an Alice joke about the International Space Station.
Oh, of course. Oh, now I get. Oh, of course. That's all I needed. That's all the context I needed.
Yep. All right. Next question we got here is: should Walt Disney get a behind the bastards treatment? He did bad shit, but could you argue he existed in the current of way worse and more influential people? It might be redundant. That's a good complex question because like Disney sucked, but he also, as you kind of mentioned, he didn't suck in super unique ways. And there are other people who sucked in the same way that Disney did, but way worse in the same period. Like, Disney got way too comfortable with fascist ideas and, like, anti Semitism and stuff. But Henry Ford was also a business mogul from around the same time that was way more into anti Semitism and fascist stuff and would be a better example. He sold out people to HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee, but he's not the only, like, executive who did that. And so, like, yeah, it would be it would be like you could do it. It's just like there are a lot of people who have different aspects that sucked in worse ways. But maybe there'd be more attention because, yeah, Walt Disney was kind of like a shit person. Hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's to say we could make a Star Trek film, like we can make a fan Star Trek thing in the same way that Seth MacFarlane made a fan Star Trek series on Fox that's going on to its 3rd season next year.
Yeah.
Also, I think we brought this up before. Legitimately good show. The Orville.
I'm still going through it, but it seems pretty good.
Like at one, like it starts off being like, oh, this is just gonna be Family Guy in space, but like very soon you're like, oh no, this is like legitimately like people who really loved like the TNG kind of Star Trek feel, and they did some awesome stuff with it. It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Suppose now looks like this is a question about transitioning. Suppose suppose transitioning was a totally socially acceptable, but society was still a strict patriarchy. Do you think many/any women would fake being trans men in order to gain male privilege? I have a lot of speculative fiction ideas I'll probably do nothing with. The other day I had the thought that there were a lot of tribal societies where transition was accepted. What if one of those societies, rather than Western Europe, got to impose their social norms on the rest of the planet?
I do think that those two things are a bit like incompatible. A little bit. Like the the idea of having like transitioning be like fully socially acceptable, but still be very patriarchal. I think transitioning would mean something else in that context. Because there are societies that are like extraordinarily sexist and patriarchal, but that still like do transitioning. I feel like I feel like a typical example is like, I don't know, like Iran, basically.
Yeah,
like Iran like forces people to transition basically.
Yeah,
But that's not, like transitioning then is not like this issue of sort of like individual self-identification, which is like which is how transition is sort of defined basically everywhere else. But there is a sort of like conformity, and in a patriarchal society, that's sort of how that. So, yeah, it wouldn't be good. Oh God, have I been?
but there is like
a
there is like a good long history though of like in like hyper patriarchal societies, a lot of like there's a lot of stories of like women pretending to be men in order to gain the benefits of a male dominated society. And then like where that leads, like where that is a like, attempt to just higher one's station in life versus like, legitimate like exploration of gender in that person is still murky, and still a lot of like historians are still trying to like work those ones out.
Yeah, this is why Twitter, by the way, historians are very cautious when finding historical people who played with gender identity or like explored gender identity because the social norms of the era are different than the ones today.
Someone just said
I,
Iran does what?
Iran does this. No, they do. Like homosexuality is banned, but if you're caught being gay, basically, you can be forced to transition so that your relationship is no longer gay.
Yeah, it comes from the fact that like there was a fatwa made within the kind of like Shia clerics that run the country, where they determined that while homosexuality under like Quranic code is wrong, but there's nothing about gender transition, so they have accepted like gender transition but not homosexuality. So they force like gay men to transition to become women so that their relationship can be heterosexual. It's a weird fucked up combination of things going on in specifically Iran.
Yeah, and it's not an example of like accidental trans rights or anything. It's like it's still extraordinarily transphobic, but just for other reasons.
Okay, what do we get next? If the okay, this should be fun. If the Aztecs or Inca had access to iron and steel and horses, could they have been empires on par with what we saw with like Mali and Mughal India? The answer is yes, because both of those already were. Like the Inca Empire was like already without iron and horses one of like the largest empires that has ever existed. And the Aztecs, when Hernando Cortés showed up, the Aztecs were like en route to becoming like one of the most we're basically on like a kick of like expansion and conquest that they more or less would have conquered all of Central America at some point, because they were on the cusp of a lot of really big technological breakthroughs. At the same time, they were also growing this network of tributary conquests and stuff. So yeah, I think they were already well on their way, so they could totally have done that.
Yeah.
So
I don't have a take.
it is 100% yes. Okay, next up. Is it right or helpful to blame regular British people for Brexit? So normally when a popular election doesn't go the left's way, the 2004 presidential election, say, oh boy, leftists will either say, 1, people voted for the right because the left failed to sell a viable alternative, or 2, they voted for the right because they were tricked by propaganda. What they don't do is just say that people voted wrong because they're thick and evil. Man, very British line there. Because we kind of wouldn't be leftists if we thought about regular people that way. I kind of feel like some leftists treat Brexit as the exception to that, like it's the one time it's okay to blame regular people for voting wrong. Like I remember Tristan said he only feels bad for the British people who suffered because of Brexit if they didn't vote for it. Listen, I'm feeling called out by this exchange, specifically because I'm being called out. I don't know. How do you feel about this? You were nodding along.
No,
So you...
no, it's a good point. Like we shouldn't really blame regular British people, but I do feel like that there is like I feel like there's a difference between like talking about British people in general, like blaming the British people for Brexit, for example, and blaming Brexit voters, like Brexiteers. And just as I think that in America there's a difference between like blaming the electorate or whatever, and like blaming Republicans, right? Like people often blame Republicans. People often blame people who are like diehard Trump supporters who despite having had access to like the a better alternative and like to all the facts, still choose to vote for the I don't know the worst option. Those people have like made a knowing choice to make bad. Uh, and I think the same thing can be said for a lot of people who voted Brexit. But I think that's different from like general electorate to people who have made like a knowing bad choice that will harm people. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of coming out of this like there's like this thing in modern day right wing politics that makes it very hard to be sympathetic with, which is like this performative rejection of science and empathy. That even if you're like, yeah, they're propagandized, but like, man, it's really hard to. It's really, really hard to get along with or feel sympathy for people who, because of their political identity, like performatively, like make a note to make a big deal about not being not believing in science and not and being against empathy. And it's like, oof, I don't know how to go with that. I do imagine there's a lot of Brexit voters who made a decision in 2016 before they realized like the deep consequences of what was going to happen.
Mm.
And it is interesting. It is good to point out that the Yes on Brexit campaign did lie, like openly lie, a
Yeah.
lot. Um, but yeah, like
The infamous Brexit bus.
yeah, and the what's it called? The birds, the money birds.
The money birds.
But like, yeah, at the same time, this was like when you look at like motivations for these votes, it was a vote motivated by a hatred of like basically Muslims and Polish people. As far as I can pick up, those are the two groups that the Brits were that Brexit people were really mad at. And like a lot of their motivations were about having less immigrants and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, man. Those kinds of motivations are really, really hard to stretch your empathy to those people.
Mm.
And I don't know how to do it. It's kind of like when we talked about the Duggar situation, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of like, context that puts you into that situation. But at the end of the day, there are people who saw all of that propaganda, who lived in the exact same context and chose to not be racist. And so, I don't know. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's a good answer.
Alrighty. Excellent. I occasionally make those. All right. Man, I'm so excited for 2 questions from now, so I want to get through these. Remember that time that Kissinger was almost arrested for war crimes in France in 2001? If they'd actually managed to arrest him, do you think they would have actually gone to trial? Or do you think that the
No.
Bush administration would have been able to use political pressure to get him released?
Oh, 100% they would have used political pressure. Are you kidding me? 100%. There is
Yeah.
no way any American is ever getting charged for any war crimes. Like they're like no, like none whatsoever. Like the U.S. cut off diplomatic relations with Sweden for a significant amount of time because we were like, hey, maybe the Vietnam War is kind of shitty. And that was it. Like no diplomatic connections with the U.S., which it's kind of a big deal, especially for like the bigger country you are, the worse it gets. Sweden can kind of get away with it, but like a lot of countries can't. And that's like the lowest thing that they can do. They can do so much more. No way, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if they did anything through any sort of UN body, like if they tried to try Kissinger through the International Criminal Court or something, the U.S. would have been able to veto anything they tried to do. So, like, I don't even know, like, Interpol couldn't have done anything. Like, I don't know if Kissinger committed any crime specifically in France. So, like, I don't know what jurisdiction they would go with or anything.
Is it the what do what's the ICC that they mention for like the International Criminal Tribunal?
Yeah, like which
Yeah, because
they
like the US doesn't recognize that, right?
I don't know if they recognize it or not, but I know that there's a big problem with the ICC basically is only ever used to attack African dictators and nobody else.
Which, to be fair, that's still good. People who do genocides in Africa should still be held to account, but people who do genocides everywhere should be held to account.
Yes.
It's super weird that it's only like in Africa where people are like even like superficially being held to some sort of account.
Yeah, it's only dictators from the developing world and countries that don't have critical resources. Like, you never see the king of Saudi Arabia being put in front of the International Criminal Court.
No, never.
Because, yeah, everything is horrible. Okay, have you ever read or watched, gets us into an adaptation, something called The Culture?
I have not, but people keep telling me to read it. It's a science fiction series, I think.
Yeah, I always mixed up with The Foundation, which is Isaac Asimov's really, like, big epic series, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the yeah, I think it's one of the science fiction series. People keep telling me to do it. Apparently there's like an AI or something in it that like gives people fully automated like through gay space communism. Um that's interesting, but
Yeah, okay. So is it possible to like the culture you... Oh, never mind. It was just capitalized culture. Is it possible to like the culture you grew up in without being nationalistic? I love British culture, but I increasingly have disdain for the
oh,
British state. I don't know how to square those feelings in my head because ultimately the British state is a product of British culture.
I'm not sure that it's a product of British culture. There's like, I would say that there maybe are elements of every culture that are positive and something that are negative. Like I like, I like a lot of parts of Swedish culture, and I don't like certain other parts. And I think that's most people like view culture in that way. And I think I think you can still take pride in the things that you like, as long as you're critical of the things that you don't.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know much to say on this. I don't particularly give a shit about Canadian culture, so because we basically don't have one. That's
You
not.
do have a culture. It's called oil mining.
Yeah, it's not. It's like that's not even much of a joke because like I took a Canadian literature class and there's been a lot of talk about how Canadians struggle with the fact that we basically have no cultural identity and no actual like unique culture at all.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that where was oh no, I've already told the story before. Never mind. There's just this joke about Canada. It's like Canada could have had French food, British culture, and American technology, but we instead chose to have French technology, British food, and an American culture.
Worst combination of them all.
Yeah, it's a classic. Okay, now here's the question I was really looking forward to because this is a very groovy question, baby.
Oh.
About your favorite movie series,
Uh-huh.
which is the question is, why is Austin Powers? Is internet culture his legacy? And what's up with that mole? P.S. Yes, this is a meme.
God, what a good franchise. Austin Powers is.
So why is Austin Powers?
Austin Powers is because a okay, how deep in the lore do you want me to go here? Because I can go deep in the film analysis here.
I mean, let's see what you got.
So so Mike Myers, the creator of Austin Powers, and who plays the titular character and also plays a bunch of other characters, including Doctor Evil and Fat Bastard, um, made this thing as a sort of like love letter to the 60s, while also having it to be, while also like carefully crafting it to be a sort of like a more modern like critique of the 60s, like the things that doesn't work with the 60s. And we see this in the dialectic, right, between the between the two characters of Austin Powers, who in the first movie gets awakened up in the 1990s, and I don't remember her name, but like the more modern equivalent, Vanessa, I think. The fact that I know all of these things is stupid to me. Um, um, they and they, uh, the, the the dialectic here is between like the free loving, uh, the shagadelic era of the 1960s compared with the sort of like a bit more conservative, a bit more like uptight, but also a bit more like structured and a bit more like orderly 90s. And the synthesis is the synthesis of all of that is that that we maybe shouldn't be so uptight, but also we can merge the good aspects of both. Um, all of this, and this story is presented both in this way, in the culture clash between two time periods, but also as a sort of exploration of Mike Myers' own relationship to his own father, which is why in every single one of these things, the role of fatherhood plays an extremely important role. In the first movie, we have Dr. Evil and his son, who they don't have a good relationship. They have to go to therapy, and the role of fatherhood there is portrayed as like a bit like easy-handed and like almost jokey, but in the sense of like not taking responsibility, which also reinforces the same themes that the time discussion also presents. That Doctor Evil is coming from a time where personal responsibility doesn't really exist in the same way. Like you can sort of do whatever, and this is sort of a message that here's an example of that not working in practice anymore. You have to take responsibility. You have to be a good father, and if you're not, you're gonna end with Scott being an asshole, which he ends up being. And in the further movies, you can see how Doctor Evil keeps shirking the responsibilities of fatherhood by like creating Mini-Me, by creating who is just a clone of himself, reflecting his own individual personality onto what he wants his son to be, which is just a clone, like a literal clone of himself. And in the second movie, Mike Myers is saying that like even this, even if fatherhood had that much control over your child, that still is not going to end up with a good relationship. The only thing that ends up with a good relationship is in the third movie. This is a fatherhood trilogy, by the way. It's all about this. This is a film series about fatherhood. It's not about dicks, I promise. In the third movie, we see that Dr. Evil and Austin Powers are actually brothers, and that their father was an absent father, which is bad. But the father there makes a conscious effort to like reconnect with his son, and try to form a connection while also not being, like not too controlling, but not too loose either. So again, like this with the same time theme from the first movie. That is why Austin Powers.
Okay, so couple things on that. So
this is also why Mike Myers. That's also why Shrek is the way it is. That's also why. That's why every Mike Myers movie is the way it is. It's because he had a complicated relationship with his own father, and he's expressing that in his art.
Excellent.
Which includes dicks and farts.
I have one request and two questions, which is one. I don't understand why this isn't a video of yours.
Good point. Actually, I'm adding that to my
You
list.
have way too many thoughts and feelings about Austin Powers that second, I always thought that the pitch of the movie was, what if we plucked like James Bond circa The Spy Who Loved Me and just dropped him into modern day, and it was like a fish out of water story. But there's a lot more to it than that.
But yeah, because it's also a critique of the sort of like classic Bond thing, right? Too, because Austin Powers is initially much like James Bond is, like kind of misogynistic, very like sexually pushy, and has to learn that like that's not how you can be as a man, especially in the 90s. Like maybe you could get away with that in the 60s, but this is a modern time and we can't do that.
And the third thing, which is a serious lore analysis answer, and that was, what was the fate? Why did we not see the fate of one Felicity Shagwell, and why was she just dropped between movies?
Oh God, who? I don't remember Felicity Shagwell.
She was
that her, yeah. What in the second and the third? I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, the movies aren't perfect, obviously.
I guess it was supposed to be because that also happens in James Bond movies, right? The girl that he ends up with at the end is just mysteriously gone by the next movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what happens with the first Vanessa too. Like they end up together.
And she was a fembot the whole time.
She was a fembot the whole time.
Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Sadly, we knew all along. Sadly.
It's also a very stupid movie, which is something I appreciate, that in the second movie when he gets into the time machine car, and
it's just best not to think about it.
Yeah, best not to think about it and have some fun, and then looks into the camera and just
that goes for you all too.
That goes for you all too.
Yeah. The second
tonight.
Yeah, the second Austin Powers movie is the only movie that I can recall that in theaters I actually remember like the laughing so hard that I was like unable to catch my breath and was worried about passing out.
Yeah.
And it was during the forced perspective shadow scene at the campsite.
That scene still gets me. Just like I laugh like I have discovered comedy for the first time. Like I'm an alien discovering what comedy is. Yeah. That is an incredible scene. It's so stupid. I love it.
Mike Myers, despite the fact that he had to go then make 1,000 Shrek movies, he has a very good feel for like adult comedy or for inappropriate comedy, and I'm sad that he then went to do a bunch of kids movies, because like he could have done so many like if he had made movies kind of like Will Ferrell just made a bunch of movies, we would have had some freaking gems in that.
But I honestly think that like he had a message, like he had an artistic drive, right? Like his relationship with his father, and he expressed that in a few Shrek movies and in the Austin Powers franchise. And he realized while making The Love Guru that while he was trying to sort of like to capitalize on sort of what people think Austin Powers is about, which is about sex. People think that's what the movie is about. It's not. It's about fatherhood. But people think it's about sex and like fucking and being like talking about dicks everywhere, and like people think that that's funny. But when he made The Love Guru, he was like, okay, what if I just make a movie about that? Not about artistic father, not with any artistic drive. Just like take what people think is good about my movies and just make a movie about that. And that ended up with The Love Guru, and it was not good. And he realized that, okay, cool. Well, okay, I can't really make something that's gonna work well without an artistic drive. And he realized he doesn't have any, so he stops making movies.
That's actually
which is what
pretty
you're
based.
Supposed to do.
Yeah, that's pretty. That flies directly in the face of like the capitalist drive, and is honestly pretty badass.
Yeah, he told his message, and now he's done.
Yeah. Okay, I Solid. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay. Just got text messages real quick. Okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks, internet. It's my phone saying that my bill. This is my phone just telling me how much money I have to pay them.
Oh, that's fun. No, but yeah, like I need to make this into a video. Clearly, I have a lot of things to say about it.
Yes. Including a scene where you like call your dad.
I do need to call my dad.
You should save it for Father's Day next year.
Oh shit! Oh, well, that's the thing, right? Because like Swedish Father's Day and American Father's Day are not on the same time.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're like wildly like different times of the year.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, which is really annoying too, because like I hear people on the internet talking about Father's Day and Mother's Day, and I'm like, oh shit, did I forget anything? No, because it hasn't happened yet.
Europe. Okay, speaking of Europe, if the European colonial powers of the 19th century had become federal states instead of decolonizing, think of the Imperial Federation or French Algeria, would the world have been better either for the metropoles or the colonized?
Oh, the metropoles, 100%. It would have been better for the metropoles, in the sense that they would have been able to sort of extract wealth for longer. It would have been disastrous for the colonies.
Yeah, what is transitioning to federated states, but colonization persisting?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just looking at Vision and saying that, or looking at Wanda and saying that.
What is federalization, if not colonialism persisting?
Yeah. Okay. Is there are you ready for Gays Talk 2021?
Oh, hell yeah. It's been a while since Gays Talk.
Yeah. Is there such thing as a gaysless or audienceless piece of media? In addition, are audiences pre-existing or forged by media? What's an audienceless piece of media? Like, I guess it's like a thing you make for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, it's a chicken and egg scenario, right? Like people make content for an audience, but by virtue of having made that content, it changes the audience, which in turn changes future content creation.
Mm-hmm. Although I will say that, like, it's like, is our audiences pre-existing or forged by media? There is like a cycle of like, you make a thing that's popular with an audience, then like marketers and stuff like that see this audience, and because of the way that they think, they break them into marketable categories and be like, well, these people like this, therefore, like, we have now invented demographics that this will respond to, and then they'll try to make the media to appeal to that specific demographic, and it's usually very cringy. So there is a cycle of that. I thought you said Gays Talk like a gay, Gays. Oh boy. All right, let's see what we got next. You know that we're doing good because we're getting into the Christos Nicolau questions.
Oh yeah.
All right. Do you think that people, for example, women, can learn something about themselves from watching media about them from other types of people, like, say, the male gaze? Well, it's been sneaky. That one snuck up on us.
Snuck up on us.
In addition, can people empathize with characters in media that aren't made for them, like Lara Croft in the earlier games as both male fantasy and feminist icon, or Batman made as a male power fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time, for good and ill. Yeah, sometimes, what's it called? Male sexual fantasy characters get turned into icons of feminist empowerment, and sometimes parodies of terrible people become like legitimate, like, beloved characters. Like, that's what happened with Archie Bunker, the racist character from All in the Family, and kind of with Barney Stinson, I don't remember, from what's it called, How I Met Your Mother. Like,
Bad show that is.
You know, they're trying to make like a soft reboot or like, you know how like sitcoms.
No.
Yeah, okay. You know how sitcoms are trying to like do like a limited run, like let's just bring back one short season of this show, like they did with Friends, I think. Or did they do it with Friends? I don't know what the Friends reunion was, honestly. But honestly, but like they're doing it with Dexter. Like they're having that like limited run Dexter season, and they're doing it with How I Met Your Mother, and it's starring like I think
How
it's
I
starring
Met
like
Your
Hilary
Father,
Duff.
starring Hilary Duff.
Yeah,
We need to stop this. This is one of those moments where this is one of those moments in history where you can basically see what's happening, and you know that it's going to be a bad thing just for our culture. We can't have it.
we need to cancel this show to get us back on the golden path.
Yeah, yes. Someone needs to destroy the show. We need to oppress sitcom enjoyers.
Honestly, like I think that the worst thing that has ever happened to media in the last 20 years is millennial nostalgia. It is we have turned into a society that is entirely made up of recycling older things and remaking them. And we have stopped making new things. That's how you know we're a society in decline. How do you two feel about Verhoeven and Starship Troopers? Verhoeven Starship Troopers is possibly the most genius film ever made.
Yes, it is it's best. It's so good.
I loved so much that it is a satire of fascism and the fascism that is like inherent in American nationalist culture, and the fact that Americans cannot see this at all is like the most perfect indictment of American. Verhoeven understands American culture better than any American on earth. And
Yes.
RoboCop and Starship Troopers both show this perfectly. Because and Verhoeven is the only reason that he knows it so well is because he spent his childhood dealing with Nazi occupation, and he knows exactly what it is. But yeah, I love Starship Troopers. I love that Americans think that it is just a dumb action movie because it says exactly what the point Verhoeven was trying to make. Is there anything else? Is there anything you want to add?
No, good movie. To rewatch Starship Troopers 2.
I guess we're just gonna be like watching some movies from the 90s now. It's like the late
Yeah.
90s, it's late 90s movie day.
Fuck yeah, it's gonna rule.
Yeah. All right, next one we got here is in the year 3000, will we treat stuff like Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe like the way we treat the Iliad or Odyssey or the Mahabharata or the Ramayana today? Oh boy.
No, I don't think so. I think we're gonna treat it as we do the operas of the Renaissance.
Yeah,
That's
because
how
like
I think we're gonna treat it.
because there is like an important aspect about culture, which is the thing that we often forget, which is that like the things that are considered like the greats, like decades later or centuries later, were typically the like, like it's not the like award winner, Oscar winners of their days that are the things that move forward today that we remember. It's like the crap for the masses. Like William Shakespeare was like just like a guy who like wrote like really fast and crappy plays for like just people who were like literally like eating shit on the ground and like there was no chairs and stuff like that for with like that was the kind of theater he was doing. It wasn't haute couture of its time. It was like it was just like Shakespeare was the like 16th century equivalent of the Marvel movies and stuff. And same with like Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens wrote for like shitty pulp magazines. Same with like what's his name? Friggin' Lovecraft. Like
Yeah.
a lot of them wrote for like these really shitty publications and were not considered very like highbrow literature of their day, and then became such like years later.
Yeah. God, that is how people are gonna watch Star Wars, right? Like people are gonna see Star Wars as like film.
As a person who is old enough to remember Star Wars before they started making prequels, they were already doing that in the
Yeah.
90s. Like I remember
Yeah.
there was a time in the 90s where George Lucas was considered like an auteur genius, and that those movies were like deconstructed as like masterpieces of cinema. And now today, because they've made like 6 more movies and only one of them is good, they have it's been an absolute mess.
Yeah.
Shakespeare is 16th century Kevin Feige. Wow. It's true, but you shouldn't say it. And yes, somebody did point out that there are a lot of fart jokes in a lot of Shakespeare's plays.
There's a lot of crude jokes in Shakespeare's plays. Like, a lot.
Yep.
I remember, fuck, I don't remember what it's called. But when I did art school, we did play some Shakespeare, and like and we sort of like modernized it a little bit, and the audience were always like surprised over the fact that like, no, we're making jokes about like big dicks now for the next like 5 minutes. We're just gonna use very poetic language to talk about big dicks.
Yeah, I remembered.
And
Oh, sorry.
that's
go ahead.
it.
I do.
That means Austin Powers is gonna be remembered as film.
There you go. You did it. We came full circle. I love my favorite thing that I learned about Shakespeare, which is that the public idea that Romeo and Juliet is this story about love and about like how beautiful and wonderful like hopeless love is. But like if you actually look at the context of the time, it was a novel about, or it was a play about why children are stupid, and that love is kind of dumb, and that marrying for love is a stupid idea, because in that time marrying for love was kind of considered irresponsible and childish, and it was just William Shakespeare trying to show why.
These damn kids. Do you see what you've done?
Yeah, he was talking about millennials ruining marriage. Millennials ruining marriage.
Damn Gen Zers.
Yeah. So that's that's that. Okay, let's see. So you know the argument that a Nazi would advocate free speech for themselves on social media, but not, for example, ISIS. What if you argued with someone who literally said, "I'm okay with both Nazis and ISIS having platforms because of free speech"? P.S. Don't ask how I come up with these dilemmas. I have way too much time on my hands. I feel that.
I mean, if you support that, then like I feel like I've been arguing this for a long time too. That like I feel like the left needs to sort of like really take over the conversation about free speech as well. That like either we become free speech absolutists in a sense, or we realize that like free speech isn't absolute as it already is, and stop talking about it on the right wing's circumstances and be like, no, we don't believe in absolute free speech, and I don't believe that neither Nazis nor ISIS should be able to have Twitter, and I think that should be moderated by someone, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, if that means that it's not complete free speech, okay.
Yeah. There's it's actually like one of my favorite points in a ContraPoints video from a long time ago, that like, by enabling free speech of certain people, you are by nature denying the free speech of others, because you're sort of pushing people out of a space. And like absolutist free speech is always going to be taking those that have power in the society that it's happening in and taking it away from the people who don't.
Yeah. And I think that like the idea that free speech should be absolute is an idea that the right wing has won on. Like they won that idea, because even people on the far left would be like, well, we all believe in free speech, and there's a part of me that's just like, no, we shouldn't. None of us should believe in complete absolute free speech. We should believe in moderated speech. That's just how it should be. Mm-hmm. In my opinion. And the thing is, we already have moderated speech in many places. We don't have free speech already. We don't have it. It doesn't exist. We can't have it. We already have moderated speech, which is what we should have. And once we sort of like once we embrace that and sort of like stop surrendering that entire talking point to the far right, then we can start to sort of like deconstruct what it means. But I don't think we can ever win the free speech debate as long as free speech means is like equal with absolute free speech, and any infringement on it is like it's like anti-liberty or whatever. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah, the main thing is that free speech in a like context of a society that doesn't have equality for all, like where all voices are considered of equal standing, is not going to be free. It's just going to privilege those who are perceived through our cultural lens as having more authority, are going to be the ones who rise to the top. And
Yeah.
also, but I do like that question does point out that there's like an extreme hypocrisy in the right that's like, ooh, what just happened? Hey, canola oil, thank you for resubscribing. Much appreciated. Yeah, so the what I was saying was okay. ADHD strikes again. So yeah, in a
The hypocrisy of the right.
yeah. So, like, because like many people who are like, oh yeah, we shouldn't ban Nazis from Twitter, had no issues with banning ISIS from Twitter, or like when left wing people get banned from Twitter, that never becomes an issue to them. And that there's this thing that like freedom to a lot of right wing people and free speech to a lot of right wing people means their right to speak and everybody else's right to force them to listen to them without criticism. And that's all it really means. Like, to them, free speech means their right to be listened to without anybody. Everybody is forced to listen to them with no criticism. Which is what I like to call, in the civil libertarian game, bullshit.
It's a bullshit.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to think if we can squeeze one more question. We got about 2 minutes left.
Very quickly.
Okay.
Quick fire hour.
Next one we got here is a question for Mia. With regards to your Silicon Valley video, what do you think is the best solution? 1, delivery apps run by the restaurants, or 2, delivery apps run by the delivery dudes. Both are platform cooperatives, but owned by different types of workers. Which would work best?
Extremely interesting.
The people's DoorDash, or everybody has a pizza delivery guy?
That's very interesting because I think that I would probably prefer like a restaurant app run by restaurants. I think, and then, but yeah, I think that would be best because like otherwise. Because otherwise, I feel like otherwise restaurants are gonna not benefit, but individuals who are delivery drivers will still benefit from having like stable employment, which I'm hoping that this app would also help provide, if that worked. But that would also mean that basically every restaurant would have to sort of like syndicalize almost, and this one narrow spot. Like form one big restaurants union to outcompete companies.
That's what the IDWW was about. One big restaurant union.
One big restaurant union, or like a meta union. But I would probably it would probably be a lot more effective a lot more practical to have like the people's DoorDash, like the delivery drivers having something like that. But probably like in a better cooperation with the restaurants themselves, right? Because then, if then there's no middleman. All of the money could go directly to the drivers, and that means the restaurants wouldn't necessarily have to take.
I swear I need to have a reminder on this.
The 25% loss that they currently do, they could take a far lesser loss. So I think that would probably be a lot better, actually. Like unionized delivery drivers.
Yeah, the Teamsters union, but for delivery drivers. That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that could work. I would prefer that over having some like random company, based in like rural Stockholm, is taking like 25% of every order, and also making it so that restaurants like make less money, and also exploiting their own delivery drivers by not letting them be full employees.
And someone also just mentioned that there actually is a Pizza Hut that has an IWW union work in their workplace,
yes.
which is like, I wish to see this Pizza Hut. That is almost up there with the French bakery called the Conquest of Bread. I need to find that Pizza Hut. That's the best Pizza Hut.
Tim Corman said there could be an app run by both the restaurants union and the delivery people union. Yeah, so like something that could also work.
I too like anarcho-syndicalism. I too like if we were to replace all of our businesses with co-ops made by the workers who work there that were not driven by the profit margin but by increasing the benefit of all the workers. I too enjoy communism. Thank you, Nightwatcher13, for the resubscription. I know that you've been busy with work and stuff, and I've missed having you around. She's one of our really great mods. But it is 2:00, so we gotta get people, selling some Mia content. What kind of Mia content's going on?
Mia content's going on is that I make videos on youtube.com .biz.org. You can find my channel on miamulder.com. It'll take you straight to my channel. I'm currently building a website that should be up this week. Building a website is hard. And I'm not sponsored by anyone, so I don't even get a nice bonus to design a website. I tweet on Potato Politics. I'm going to try to reduce my tweeting because tweeting sucks. And I play video games on twitch.tv/miamulder, where I recently started a new playthrough of Fallout New Vegas. Which is gonna be fun.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We are going to raid MX Emily, who is coming back to streaming today after getting some gender confirmation surgery. So, congratulate her on that. And we will. I'll be back tomorrow night, but everybody else, I'll see you around the internet.
Yeah.